How's it going, everybody? Coach D here from All Out Athletes. And yes, we have another podcast here, the Last Dance Baseball Tournament podcast. And for some of those who are still asking, what is the Last Dance Tournament? What is this? The seniors are actually getting a baseball tournament. You can't go to the parks because there's no basketball hoops on a lot of the parks in the state yet. But right now, they're coming out. Governor Murphy approved this baseball tournament. So it seems like by then, the tournament starts on July 14th. So that's a great thing. So now everything, the other sports will start to open. I know there's some basketball teams that are going back on July 13th when all the coaches are allowed to meet with their athletes again. And we have one of the originators of this idea of putting this whole thing forward. He's with us tonight on the podcast. And let me give you a little background about him. He started out as an assistant coach over at Cranford High School, and the kids liked him so much, they thought of him as a co-head coach. That's not to take the place of the head coach who is still there, who I hear is a great coach over there, but they looked at him as a co-head coach. And he was there. While he was there, they won 6 county championships and 6 sectional titles. Then Millburn High School said, we got to get this guy over here. So they bring him over to Millburn High School. In his first year in 2011, they win a sectional title and go 24-7. He talked about changing the mindset of the athletes when he got there. Well, he not only did that, he won the title by doing it. In 2015, he was the National Coach of the Year. They give out 11 of these, 11 coaches out of over 35,000 high schools in the country. And he's with us here today. Let's welcome head coach of the varsity baseball team at Millburn High School, Brian Chapman. Brian, coach, how's it going?
It's going great, man, especially after that introduction. Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate it a lot. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to talking some baseball.
So how did you change the mindset of the athletes? You know, we talk about at All Out Athletes, if you want to train like a champion, you got to first think like a champion. How did you do that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm pretty familiar with what you guys do, and it's a great concept. And listen, if you're running anything successfully, be it a baseball program, a business, a school, whatever it is, that has to be part of your mindset, that championship mindset. And certainly in my time in Cranford, which you alluded to, working for Dennis McCaffrey, who was a terrific mentor, I learned that that's the way you had to run your baseball program. It was, believe it or not, an easy transition for us to come over to Millburn and take some of those things that we had applied, and I had watched Dennis apply in Cranford, and we applied them in Millburn. And it's like you said, it's a mindset, it's a way you do things, it's an approach, and the kids bought in right away. We got a few lucky bounces, and we won some games. So it's been fun. We got off to a good start.
Can you speak specifically about a certain mindset that you talk about? Because what we talk about is, you know, what is discipline, right? Discipline is basically acting differently than you feel. You know, you don't feel like training today, but you do it anyway. You know, I don't feel like running it hard out to first base, but you do it anyway. You know, so yeah. Can you speak like just on one thing that you guys talk about? Maybe it's a quote that you guys do. What's one thing that you guys speak about?
Well, I think just personally, my approach to this whole thing, and I think it lines up with what you're saying, and it might be unique. I don't know. But I parent this way, I teach this way in the classroom, and I coach this way. And the word I use a lot is empowerment. I never want to be a parent or a teacher or a coach who gets respect or gets results out of fear, or, that their why is that I'm telling them to do it. I try to show our players, if you want to talk specifically about baseball for a second, I try to get our players to understand that this is the way a championship person or, a successful person would go about their business. This is what you should do. This is how you get here. Here's the roadmap. But please don't do it because you're afraid I'm going to yell at you or anything to do with me. I try to build assistant coaches. It's worked really well with my assistant coaches, who I've retained for 10 years. In this climate, that's almost impossible. But it's because they're coaching bases and doing things and thinking on their own. And, I really just kind of sit back. I try to, spread that message. You could say I'm a player's coach. but I try to teach the players how to be leaders, right? So that I don't have to be the leader. I don't want to be the reason that my right fielder shows up and works hard. I want my right fielder to understand why he should show up at the weight room and do it because he wants to and he loves to. And that's, I really feel like we've been able to build that culture a little bit at Millburn, and also in my classroom and hopefully in my house a little bit with my two sons. You know, that's always the message I'm trying to put forth.
Yes, I think that's a great message, is the empowerment, right? What are we talking about here at All Out Athletes? To go out there and train on your own without the coach. Because can you coach yourself? That's what you're doing, because if you have to stand behind and look over the shoulder of every athlete, that's a lot of work. And then,
yeah.
Now, I agree that there's got to be a little fear from the head coach, a little bit, but not to the point where if I don't do it, the coach is, oh, wait, he's watching me. Okay, we better go harder. You want to be able to turn your back and they're still working just as hard as when you're facing them. And that's the empowerment part of it. But there are guidelines, right? I'm sure you don't tell your assistant coaches, okay, go out there and do whatever you want. I'm sure there's guidelines of how they can do that without telling me, this is what we're looking for. What's your idea of how we can get there? What do you think about it? And then you shape it with them, right? Because you're the head coach, so you shape it out. And that's the idea that Coach Chapman's talking about, is empowerment. Give them some guidelines, right? If it always comes from us, like I've been coaching for a while, always comes from us, I'm a yeller. I like to yell. But the more I yell, the more I have to yell, right? The more, right. Because so then I start stepping back, say, okay, if I yell because I get a little lazy, let's go. They need that little boost of energy, depending on what sport you're coaching, because baseball, there's a lot of downtime in baseball. So if you're always this, it got to be focused at bat. It can't be, if you're too juiced up, then it takes the focus away. You got to care, but not too much. You got to have that relax, because we know how hard baseball is. Baseball is a very difficult sport, and it takes a lot of focus and discipline in order to hit that ball. So you got to have that. I love that of how to empower the athletes. So get them to. So that's what one of the basketball coaches from Tennessee, Pat Summitt, she said, discipline yourself so no one else has to. And I think that comes with that. That comes with the empowerment.
That's a great line. And I will say, too, you mentioned there has to be fear or a slight fear. And that's definitely the way we were raised as players when we were growing up, right? That was the coach-player relationship. It was one of, I don't mean to make it too strong, but like a dictatorship. And, I said this, so you do it. And I never believed that was ultimate learning or coaching. I never believed that growing up. And when I was in a position where I was able to work with kids and hopefully develop kids and help kids, I didn't want fear to be even a shred of it. I respect is a different word. And I do, I feel like earn and also command and a little bit demand the respect. But I think that goes hand in hand, that they know and they figure out over time that ultimately my goal is to teach them and to guide them and to show them the way. So it's a fine line, I think. And I try to never involve fear or because I said so. I have never used that phrase once in my coaching, teaching, or parenting, because I said so. I think that it's always a conversation, communication, explanations, and people want to have those things. They want to understand, I think, and I've gotten to see some really good growth with players, my own children and my students, through that type of relationship. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. As you said, you don't want to see one bit of fear. Now, there are coaches who coach out of fear and empowerment. So when they first get to athletes, it's, coaches, man. But then the coach starts to give a little to them. Now that he's got them on a straight line, now he gives it. And before you know it, he releases them and they have all the power, right? That's what empowerment is. It's power. It's giving your power away to the athletes. They have the power they have the power right now. No matter what the sport, they could be out training right now. That's empowerment, when you don't need a coach always telling you what to do. And I think empowerment's a great word. Now, I don't think we use it enough in our language when we speak about sports, about anything when it comes to athletes.
Well, it does. It takes some letting go as a head coach or a teacher or a parent. Tough. It takes some trust in the system, and it's hard for some of us, myself included, sometimes to to be able to step back, because when you allow others that much say and that much power in what you're doing or something that has your name on it, there's a risk involved, and there's definitely some eggs broken. There's mistakes that happen. Like you mentioned, when I threw my young assistant out and told him, you're coaching third base, when we first got to Millburn, sometimes I would be biting my nails in the dugout over, some choices he made and decisions and stuff. But I'm going to tell you now, our thought process is almost one. We're so on the same vibe now after 10 years that I don't even have to give it any thought. I know he understands what I would want in different situations, because when there were mistakes made, we had conversations. And once again, I've chosen to parent that way, right? I don't really discipline my kids in terms of punishment. If something goes wrong with one of my sons, we sit down and we have a conversation, and that's how we try to do it. And I guess we'll see in a few years if it's worked out or not, if my kids figure it out, but it seems like it's working out so far. I don't know. Someone would have to ask them, but that's just the way I feel.
So as I look through this Last Dance tournament and what's happening in the state, I know like by July 6th, I believe it's the 6th, you're going to be able to gather for more than 250 people at a time. And so by July 14th, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the rules are going to be as far as being next to each other, as far as fans are concerned, right? Because I know I talked with Kroger and Coach Murray about they're going to be, taking all the athletes' temperatures, making sure everybody's safe. So have you heard of any of the guidelines of parents and fans?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it just speaks to how many layers there are to trying to pull this off. And I'll spin it back to Mike Murray. A lot of us would have loved to have put on a baseball tournament this year. Not many of us were willing to dive in 2 feet in and as deeply as he did. And it's important for all of us to realize, John Kroger and I were getting probably more credit than we deserve. Yes, we're in there in the trenches trying to help Mike, but Mike had a vision. Mike saw this through. He saw these different angles, these different hurdles that he was going to have to get through. And he's managed to work through them with diligence and resiliency and patience. It's amazing what he's done. I mean, the guy's 32 years old. He has the makeup of a much older, wiser man. He's really a sharp guy, in addition to all of his, accomplishments as a baseball player. And that was one of them, and we've watched very carefully as the governor, who's been great also, by the way, Governor Murphy. I know I don't want to turn it into a political thing, but in terms of the Last Dance, I'll only speak to that. I know he knows about it, and I know that he's thought about it when he's making some of these announcements and setting dates. I know that for a fact from, talking to different people, and he's been terrific. I do think by the 14th, when the games start, that number will be 500 or more, which, listen, I think that works, right? I mean, that's going to take a lot of, pressure off of us trying to put on tournaments at different sites, knowing that you could go up to 500. I also think we might start to get 500 at some of these games because, listen, we're all starved for baseball. Everyone wants to go see a baseball game. But I do think that in terms of fans, there's a large, and this is for any of us, whether high school or rec baseball or Diamond Nation club baseball, there has to be, I think, a pretty distinct separation between competitors at the field, coaches and players, and parents and spectators. And listen, haven't we all been kind of championing for that for a long time anyway, right? Who wants the parents hanging around the dugout anyway? This is actually great. So I think at most sites, they're going to try to herd the parents as far away from the field as possible, which, listen, you're not going to get any complaints from coaches about that. That's for sure. So,
and nothing against parents, we've done talks at the Yogi Berra Museum, and, we've done breakout sessions, right? So we've had the parents in one room, coaches in another, athletes in the other. And when we talk about that, it's the child's experience, right? It's not It's not the parents, not the coaches. It's their experience, right? And sometimes as coaches, we overcoach and take the experience away, And my friend, and some parents are overparent. They take the experience. It's their experience, and I get lost in it as a coach. That it's their experience. So when we got all the athletes separated, the one thing, they only had one question. They said, can you guys can you tell our athletic director to put the bleachers in the outfield? That's what they wanted, the bleachers. And it's not that they don't love their parents, but it's kind of like when, you want your mother to drop you off like 200 feet from the front door of the mall,
Yeah.
So you don't want your
Same
friends
thing.
to see you that your parents are dropping you off. They love you, but it's and they're never going to say that, right? They're never going to say that to their parents. Well, I'm sure some will, but a lot of athletes aren't going to say to their parents, this is my time, it's my experience. When the parents drive them everywhere, biggest supporter, bring them everywhere. So, I understand where they feel they have a right to be wherever they're part of the whole thing. But as coaches and parents, we'll have to understand it is their experience. It's their last dance, not ours. And I know for some parents, yeah, it is. It seems like it is, because if this is their only kid or their last child, or this is it for them. But if we can also remember that it's more theirs than it is anybody else's last dance. And I think that's really important.
I think that's a great point, and I think it goes back to the way, we were talking before about our philosophy in our program is you want to give your players in our program, we talk about ownership, right? And especially with our seniors, and this is about seniors. So this is pretty topical, I think. I explain to our seniors when we get back to school every year in September that, look, I'm here every year, my assistant coaches are here every year, but every year the variable is the senior class. And my experience over 30 years of coaching is that the senior class dictates, by and large, what type of year it's going to be. And not always in terms of wins and losses, but often it reflects in wins and losses also. But what's our off-season program going to look like when seniors are leading the way in the weight room, or at some facility that we rent for them to work out and train? The seniors in our program know it's their show, and we have to step back. Once again, you talk about sometimes coaches or parents were smothering these kids. At least in Millburn and in my house, we're trying to adopt the philosophy you said. And, you got to step back and you got to give these kids room to grow and to have these experiences. And absolutely, it's good to share in them. There's statistics that show the kids love when you're there.
I know, Coach Brian, I know we talked earlier about parents, put their masks on in the outfield. But listen, we got to take that with a grain of salt. You understand what he's trying to say. And sometimes he knows he could use a mask himself. So that's what he does. That as coaches, we all need that mask sometimes. So it's not just, it's all of us. It's not just, it's all of us. And that's where we got to step back. And if we're all given direction, or when the coach shuts up, the parents yell, the parents are quiet, the coach yells, it destroys the empowerment of the game. So that's all we're trying to say. I hope you all took that with a grain of salt, and you don't get, because without the parents, there's a lot of bad things that are said about parents, but without the parents' dedication, because my father never drove me to a game. My father, I love my dad, but I also didn't want him to be there. I wanted him to just drop me off. He said, it's your game. You figure out how to get there. These parents will do anything they can for their child. They'll bring them anywhere. They'll drive hours and hours and spend as much money as they can if that's what their parents wanted. I'm like, man, I wish I had that. I had to walk to every practice. Oh, you figure it out. The things that parents give, it's just great things. They're told, how much they want to be involved.
Could be another good benefit.
I have a little cousin. And, we're doing wiffle ball. He's like 5 years old, right? So we're in the backyard, and we're all playing. We're at a party. We're playing, and, hit the wiffle ball to him, and he's getting under the ball, and he's focusing, right? Now, imagine being 5 years old. You're trying to figure out the trajectory of the ball, how high it is, where you have to move. Brian, we lost you. You there?
Yeah. Sorry, buddy.
So my little cousin's trying to figure out where's the ball, and what is my cousin's doing? Catch the ball. No, he wants to eat it. What do you think he's going to do with it? Why do you want to put that? He's 5. Why do you want to put that extra pressure on him? And then they said, well, we don't know. I said, well, let me help you. I said, because I understand that. But I understand what they're doing, right? They just want to help them. But that's how they were taught how to help, right? Somebody screamed at them. Catch the ball. Move over. Keep your eye on the ball. Always giving constant direction that they never think for themselves. And so why should they think for themselves if somebody else is always going to think for them? You have to let them do it. But I understand why parents and why is me, myself, always telling them, even now, I get so hyped up. I'm telling them what to do. I'm like, oh, wait, I got to stop. Hold on. All right, you work on your own for 2 minutes. Let's see how you work, and I'll just watch you. And sometimes I just sit back, and then I give them a summary of what happened. And that's the thing, is that we're always there. Like, we don't want to let them fall, right? We're trying to crutch them through this thing instead of standing back. Coaches, parents, anybody working with kids, it doesn't have to do with, the status of the situation. It's just you're working with an athlete. Can you step back and watch them fall and encourage them to stand up? Or do we go and pick them up? That's different. That's the control part that we're trying to release to the athletes. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. You nailed it about even your cousin. It's coming from a good place, right? He's not a maniac. He's not a mean person. He loves his kid. He wants him to do well. But the reality is the kid would be better off if all his memories of playing catch with his cousin is just fun and laughing and trying his hardest, and not getting screamed at by the whole time. So,
fun.
And again, that and you mentioned another great part of, like, I think our program at Millburn that might make us a little bit unique. I'm not trying to say we invented this. Obviously, this is information that a lot of us have out there. But even as something as simple as relays or cuts on the baseball field, right? To your point before, our system, we did away with the catcher saying left, right, right, 4, cut, hold, because I talk to our relay men and I say, do you really need that catcher to tell you where to stand on a field? Like, if he didn't say anything, would you just not stand there? But it goes to your point, right? I want our players on the field to be thinking the game and knowing what the line is and how far should they be from the outfielder. And when they see a throw, the catcher can yell cut or not cut. But I want that third baseman cutting from left field. I want him to know, well, I cut that because – sorry about that. I'm getting a few phone calls.
Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, everyone must know. Everyone knows we're on the podcast. They're calling to wish me well and excited, I think. But you want your cutoff men to realize, well, I cut that because it was offline, or I cut it because there wasn't a play to play because I saw the runner was there. And that's like what a Millburn practice looks like. Almost every drill, something as routine as infield, outfield, almost every drill I stop and we have a conversation. Like, why did you do that? And what should you have done? And then when you can generate that type of thinking, now when the game starts, less yelling for me, more good conversations with maybe a guy who's on deck and things like that, right? So it all kind of comes together. But I think it ties into what you were saying. It's like, we want to create children as we parent, and students that we teach, and players that we coach. We want to create kids that think for themselves and don't just do things because we yell it at them or say them, right? Understand your why. We talk about that a lot at Millburn. What's your why? What are you doing? And as this was going on, this pandemic, and we were Zooming quite often trying to keep our players active, we were running fitness challenges, and we were doing a whole slew of things to keep them moving. And I kept saying, look, most of your whys was a season that's not here. So we have to kind of recalibrate our whys. What's our why? And I told them, like, I had a few whys. I wanted to come out of the quarantine in better shape. I wanted to come out a better coach. I wanted to come out with some understanding. So I'm going to read, and I'm going to ride the Peloton. I'm going to do things. What's your new why? And I challenged each of our guys to figure out, a new why. Because when you make your why something like a season, that's, or a win total, that can be dangerous because that can fluctuate or not happen, as we saw this year. So you need to get, I tried to challenge them to try to understand what would be a good why for them. Big range, long-term goals, short-term goals, all that kind of stuff. So again, you got me a little excited talking about that thinking part of it, but isn't that our jobs as parents and teachers and coaches, is to try to spark thinking, right? Isn't it great if I don't have to call a back pick? Can I tell one more story on this thought? I have a friend. I'm not gonna say his name. We played him in the state tournament last year. Really good friend. I talk to him almost every day. And he's a terrific coach. I still don't want to say his name because of this story. But we won the game, and the game kind of took a turn, the momentum, with like a first and second back pick at first. Our pitcher stepped off, threw to the first baseman, a timing pick at first base. We got the out. Their next kid hit a homer. It was huge that we got the out when we did. And we've talked about it and laughed about it. And I say this with no joking at all. I didn't call the play. My assistant coach didn't call the play. My first baseman called for the play without asking us. He was able to relay the request to the pitcher and put the play on by himself, a senior. He did all on his own, 100%, in a big spot in the middle of a state tournament game. He felt empowered enough to put on a pick like that. If he misses the ball, we might lose the game. But just because of the way we had maybe the way we set it up and the way we do things there, I was really proud. And I continually tell my friend, I don't think he believes me. I think he still thinks I called the play, but I really didn't. And that was a powerful moment for me along the lines of this discussion, to have this 12th grader relay a sign to one of his teammates without even getting permission from a coach on a risky play, and to see it executed. Of course, you get the tangible result of the victory, but for me, the bigger picture was, wow, he gets it. I got that kid kind of thinking and empowered. So
that's great. I love talking about empowering athletes. I love that. We do. So we have a channel on YouTube. You just type in All Out Athletes. And I work with a professor in sports psychology, Dr. Gilbert, on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. We drop a new podcast every week. And our very first one was, what is the one word that would define a champion? And he's a doctor in sports psychology. He asked me. I said, determination, focus, energy. He said, they're all good words, but it's not my word. I said, what's your word? He said, extreme focus, extreme energy, extreme. And so we try to get the point across on Thursday nights that, are you empowering yourself and going out there? What does it look like? If I drove through your neighborhood and saw you outside, what does your energy and focus look like? What are you doing? Are you going all out in your training? That's the empowerment, where the coach could turn his back and you have the same focus and energy, whether he's looking at you, turning your back, whether your mom's there or not, whether the crowd's there or not. Nothing matters. You're the most energized and focused athlete, no matter who shows up or when no one's there. You're the same person. And I think that's empowerment. But so
I think yep. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so I was going to say, before we get to the last dance, do you have any last words or anything you want to share before we end this podcast tonight? Anything else you'd like to say or share with us?
No, I mean, just quickly to your point right there, I think we're going to find out about a lot of our baseball players this summer about this extreme effort and the extreme levels, because there's not going to be a lot of people watching, right? The Division I coaches are on lockdown. So we're going to find out who still plays hard, knowing that, the Division I coaches aren't there in front of them for them to impress. So that's interesting. And my last point on Last Dance is just, once again, I know you've heard it, and I don't mean to beat it to death, but I think we all have to kind of step back and realize what an amazing job that Mike Murray has done with this. It's so much more than just, calling a few guys and getting a team together. In this difficult climate, he's been able to successfully negotiate his way through hurdles that none of us have ever even encountered before. Like there was no manual for him to follow for this, and for him to get it even to this level, to this point where it's so close to becoming a reality, is just amazing. And I'm super proud of him. And I know his dad, Big Mike, is looking down on him from heaven and feels the same way. So thanks to Mike Murray, we're going to be able to play some baseball.
Mike Murray has brought back that excitement that every coach wanted every athlete to play with in every practice and every game, that just walk out of that field and like, I get to be here. This is the great, no matter what's going on in my life, I can play any sport. I can walk out onto the field, the court, the gymnasium. I can walk into a rink, and I get to do this. Get away from all the distractions in life, all the things that are going on, even personally in our homes, you get to come out. This is your legal drug. This is it. There's nothing higher than this if you love sports. And I think that message gets lost when you see guys making a lot of money. When professional sports a lot of times sets the standard of what sports is supposed to be, we get away from what it actually is.
Amen.
So, yeah, the main thing we talked about today was empowering the athletes, and I hope everybody got the message from that, and we could all be better for it. Thanks again, Brian. And one message to the athletes. If you can go all in on your focus, you're all in. First game, all in. Whether you strike out or not, you're still all in. You're all in on your energy. You're all in on everything that you do. Then the team can rely on you to help them go all out. We'll see everybody next time on the Last Dance Baseball Tournament podcast. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Coach D here. Thanks for joining us. And on the next Last Dance Baseball podcast, Wednesday night, 8 p.m., we're going to have on the Group 3 championship coach from Somerville High School, Chris Banos. He's going to discuss how hardworking leaders create hardworking athletes. We find champions have two things in common: their energy and their focus that they bring to every competition and every training session. So when I see athletes, and I work with athletes, and they tell me, I want to be the best, I want to be a champion, I say, who cares? Like I'm telling you, who cares what you want? What are you committed to? Are you committed to bringing the unrelenting focus that Tiger Woods has? Are you committed to bringing the never-ending energy that Michael Jordan seemed to have in every game, in every competition? If we showed up at your training sessions, what do you look like? Do you look like the most focused, energized athlete on your team, in the county, in the state? Does your energy bring up and inspire everybody else around you to work harder? Does everything about you scream champion? For this week, can you commit to being the most focused, energized athlete you've ever been during your training session? Champions begin now. Champions are made in the off season, and that depends by what you're committed to. See, if you show me your actions, I'll tell you your commitments. See you next week.